Yeah, we are recording now. This is meeting number 8 in this series of meetups of the scicloj-ai group. At the moment, we are 15 people, a few more are planning to join. And today we have the amazing Bruce Hauman, who will talk about Clojure-MCP. As usual, we begin by introducing ourselves. Everybody will be saying something, just a little thing about who we are, what we care about for today and in general. And maybe, to our listeners, we should say, even though it is a series of meetups, the important things are happening in between the meetups. We are trying to turn this into a research group where we explore things and share them with each other. It has been happening with a few of the previous meetups where people were bringing, some in between collaborations, and we want it to happen more. It is challenging because we use diverse hours. Every time it is a slightly different hour just because we are so diverse in our time zones. And what it means is that, we want to communicate a lot in between and think together and challenge each other to explore and collaborate and so on. Yeah, so we will just begin saying something about ourselves. And yeah, it is so nice that we have actually a few speakers of previous meetups, which is kind of what we have at this group. Great. So maybe Marcus, would you like to say something about yourself briefly?
Yeah, hi, I'm Marcus, and I work on visual programming for Clojure. So that's like Scratch or Snap, or that gives the idea. Thanks. Let's continue with Tomasz.
Yeah, hi, I'm Tomasz, and I'm mostly Clojure hobbyist. I'm book publisher, yeah, but I love Clojure, and I'm very curious about everything what happens in this space, creating some small applications and tools for my company or for general use. So that's me.
Thank you so much. Adrian, would you like to say something?
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Adrian, Clojure developer as well. Yeah, and I'm curious about what Bruce wants to show us.
Hello, Timothy.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks very much, Daniel, for putting this on. So yeah, I'm a senior computer programmer for over 20 years, Clojure programmer for over 10 years. I'm very excited about AI tooling in general, especially like the agentic trend. So I'm very excited about this talk. So and also thanks, Bruce, for all your tooling and all your work, dev cards, Figure, all that sort of stuff. And I'm interested. I think it was Karel that mentioned the video demo of is it Clojure-MCP? I didn't find that, so I'd be curious to know where that is. So yeah, if anybody has a link. That's it.
Much. Yeah, and Karel, will you teach us to say your name again?
Of course, it's Karel in Dutch. Hello, I'm actually a Java programmer. Sorry for this, but I'm very curious about Clojure and very impressed with what I've seen in demos about what Bruce has delivered with Clojure-MCP. So just want to see more today and maybe become actually an AI convert because I'm still a bit skeptic.
So Carl, could you drop the link to Gene Kim's talk in the chat?
I'll quickly search it and I'll drop it in the chat. Yes.
Hello, Pragyan.
Hi, I'm Pragyan, and I'm a founder of Wade.ai, and we are building a no-code platform for building websites in Clojure. And I came across, I came into Clojure script because of Bruce Hauman, his first Fig Wheel demo of Flappy Bird, and that was like magical to me. And that's when I first came to know about Clojure script, and that was my introduction. So thanks for that demo itself. And after that, when Bruce Hauman launched Clojure-MCP, I was quickly into it. And as a developer, I cannot build UIs. So I'm a backend developer, and I'm using Clojure-MCPs very consistently to build UIs for Wade.ai inherently. And so far quite happy with it. And but while using it, building overall intuitions about how the AI works under the hood. And what I learned is like context matters a lot. Like better the context of the whole repository with MCP tooling, better output I'm getting. So yeah, that's the overall introduction for myself. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and of course, those who haven't yet, you should watch the recording of Pragyan's talk a few meetings ago. And hello, Ram.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Ram. I'm a Clojure programmer. I've been working with Clojure for the past 3 years now. I'm a relatively young programmer compared to all of you. Yeah, excited to see how Clojure MCP works.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and everybody should watch Ram's talk about weather forecasting recently in our conference. Yeah. Hello, Ian.
Hello. I was a Clojure programmer for a number of years, and programmer and sysadmin and test engineer and various other things before that. Technically, at the moment, I'm retired, but I'm bored, exploring avenues, looking for something to put my energies into.
Yeah, thanks. Hello, Winky Wooster.
Hey, so I'm Winky Wooster, also known as Eric Blood. I'm a huge Lisp fan for a long time and Clojure. I tried Clojure-MCP earlier this week, and that was my first real dip into agentic AI assistance, and so it was really cool. And you also, Bruce, dropped a comment about the Emacs dropping a GPTEL reference, and I'm kind of interested in saying a little bit more about that. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hello, Jed. Would you like to say something?
Hi, I'm Jed. Am I on? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'm Jed. I've been interested in Clojure for about, I don't know, since 2012, 2013, something like that. I'm really interested in the cognitive science of programming and in what exactly goes on inside the head of the average programmer. And I think that functional languages, Lisp-derived languages are really cool for that because they're very different and frankly a lot better. I'm also interested in AI, and and I'm interested in working with this group to kind of raise the profile a little bit. So I'm really excited about what will happen today.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and yeah, just to our friends joining, I'll remind that it is just the beginning of this call. We are just introducing ourselves, saying hello, hello, hello. And, everything here is recorded and it may become public on YouTube. The speaker of the talk will decide later on. And yeah, we're just saying hello for a moment, just to, it is kind of important to us to get to know each other. Hello, Lars.
Hey, can you hear me? Okay, good. Yeah, I'm mainly a TypeScript developer. I do some hobby programming in Clojure, and I would like to work with it professionally. I'm very interested in AIs using the REPL and what we can get out of that. So looking forward to hearing what Bruce has to say today.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, Siavash.
Siavash was saying he couldn't speak at the moment.
Oh, thank you for noticing that. Thank you. Yeah, and everybody should watch also Siavash's talk a few meetings ago, which was amazing as well. Hello, Ole.
Hi guys, yeah, my name is Ole. I'm working with Clojure a bit more than 4 years and was introduced to it maybe 6 years ago, and I like it very much. And I hope Clojure-MCP will help me to build some projects faster, like either my hobby projects or like at work. So it's like I feel a potential, like it's kind of like some either a tutor or like a co-worker, like who you can ask for something like, and yeah, so basically that's it.
Great to see you again, Ole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, Dan.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, nice to meet everybody. I think this is maybe my first time to one of these. I'm not even sure how to say it. The sociology meetups. Um, but super excited to see it. I like seeing like communities that come together. I think Daniel has really fostered really fun stuff here. And the reason I like Clojure is that it's this unique blend of like it's on enterprise JVM. Nobody's going to get mad at you for introducing, JVM bytecode to work or anything like that. But it's still fun and expressive. We're not drowning in dependency injection and interfaces and all this other stuff. It's really, really fun. It's expressive and it's fun to read stuff, and it's so creative. So, really excited to kind of hang out and see what we do here.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us for the first time. Hello, Sivaram.
Hey, Daniel. Sivaram Arabandi. I'm a physician informaticist, mainly doing exploratory work in Clojure. Use it, it's the go-to language for me. Don't do it often enough, so it's always like discovering Clojure again every time I try to do something. So I joined this group. I've been on and off this group for close to 5 years now, maybe pre-COVID or during COVID. And it's always fun to catch up on things, all new things in Clojure. So looking forward to the session.
Yeah, thanks so much. Hello, Damian. If you wish to say something. Yeah, I'll say about myself. I'm Daniel. My background is math and statistics and geography and community building, and I'm involved at the scicloj group. So now we can begin. And Bruce, the amazing Bruce, will, you're invited to introduce yourself to those who haven't seen you in a while, and it would be great to just begin with the talk if you wish. And I'll just mention it is in a rather free-form talk, so you can write questions in the chat and we'll kind of collect questions, and sometimes we'll stop Bruce and ask some questions and leave the bigger ones for the end.
Okay, well, I'm very grateful for everyone being here, and kind of humbled at what a diverse group of people, and people saying thank you for my work, and it kind of makes me tear up a little, or whatever. I don't know. I'm really grateful to have been able to, I don't know, affect people's lives. What else do we want out of life, right? So aside from that, I'm just going to give a quick update on me, who I am, and where I am. And so for people who don't know me, but I think maybe most people here do, I'm Bruce Hauman. I kind of wrote Figwheel, and I wrote Figwheel, this tool that kind of maybe pioneered hot reload, a style of hot reloading and coding. And then, I wrote some other tools, and most of the tools I make are something that I kind of like provide an experience like packaged up, and then and hope people take the opportunity to experience, because I found it so compelling that I had to work on it all day long for a long period of time before I release it. It's just something it's obsessive, at least that's a story I tell myself. Anyway, and one I've told you just now. Right now, I am in Saskatchewan, Canada, and I bought this church at the beginning of the pandemic with my wife, and then spent the last 5 years working on it as to turn it into a home. And I loved it. I did a lot of hand tool work, and it was a nice break from programming, and I kind of fell off the map. And I was happy to fall off the map, quite frankly. It was nice to just not program for a while. But I've done this before, and sometimes I come back, and I piddle around for a little while, and then something just strikes. Like, we're in this moment now with AI, And I was playing with it, and I saw the MCP protocol, which is a protocol for, you know, an agent to talk to tools. Like we already could call functions, you could already call functions from AI if you wrote like an agent, you know, if you wrote an agent, if you took the time to write a Python agent and then, but the MCP tooling makes it really convenient to inject these agents into a conversation. So anyway, into a chat-like interface conversation. So anyway, I did that and I set up the REPL. And I went through a few experiments and I quickly realized that it worked way, 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 way better than expectations. And so it caught me. Like it caught that thing in me where I see something that's super magic, like super interesting and helpful and beyond people's expectations, like something that doesn't align with people's expectations about what programming is, how interacting with AI agents what goes, something that falls outside of these expectations. You know, I saw it and I was like, and then I started cultivating it. You know, it didn't really work that well because eval, if you miss a paren, it doesn't work, right? And it spits it back, right? And so I started working on it so that these things became smoother. And anyway, I think my point in that was to stay on track here is that it just kind of caught that thing in me as something that's really important and worth sharing and worth my time. And and this is all kind of obsessive and compulsive for me. This is all, I can't kind of stop myself from working on this and trying to cultivate this experience that I initially glimpsed like right at the beginning. I think I'll start by describing, because there's such a wide variety of people here. I'm just going to start by saying specifically what it is. And then I'll go on to, yeah. So an MCP server is just a set of tools that you can plug in to a client so that they can use it, right? So the model context protocol is just a standardized protocol so that you can write tools that can be consumed by agents. And the most common way that people are consuming these agents are with Claude Desktop, Claude Code, and then you can also consume them with Python, and it's any number of clients. There's a lot of desktop clients out there that can consume that are chat clients. There are a lot of chat clients out there that will run locally, right? They're running locally, so you can run a local server and they can talk to them locally. There are a remote server, you can do it remotely, and there are things like that, but it's still difficult to do. Whereas you can download Claude Desktop and then have it start an MCP server, right? Claude Desktop is the desktop client for Claude Code, for Anthropic. And so this is something that is relatively accessible, and Claude Code can consume it as well, but there's a lot more setup. So that's why I'm emphasizing Claude Desktop, even though if you run Linux, you're going to have to go with a different type of chat client. Anyway, so I think, yeah, the model context protocol is just a way to package up some tools and provide them to a client. And normally it's a chat interface is what you're going to be interested in. All right. And the thing now, and the reason this is valuable, right, is you're providing tools to an AI. The AI can then choose which tools to execute, and when given a task, it will utilize the tools to solve the task. All right. Now, I'm assuming most people knew that already, but I just wanted to cover it. Moving on from there, Clojure has been difficult for things like Claude Code and other coding assistants because of the parentheses, mostly. Because of the parentheses, mostly, it becomes a little bit onerous to use things like Claude Code. Now, people may have fixed that for themselves, but in my experience, it's a bit difficult. The way they patch code and the way that LLMs write code, parentheses are a problem. All right, so along with eval in Clojure-MCP, which is pretty beefed up, right? It goes over nREPL, it times out, it fixes parentheses, it lints code before it comes in. I beefed up this MCP tool so that it's actually more usable. And, it can handle multiple evaluations in one submit, right? It's not just one form, it's multiple forms. And the other tools that I brought along with it, I made tons of tools to find out what would work best. I made like, symbol inspection, namespace introspection. I did all these things to see like what would work. But then I pared it back down. And after I did that, I pared it back down. And so the other thing that seems to be most valuable for Clojure are editing tools. Tools that handle parentheses and better, right? Tools that make it easy to write changes to Clojure. And so I beefed up a set of tools around editing, and I spent a lot of time on them so that when the model intends to edit some Clojure code, it can just edit it and not have to get a rejection back. It just edits it, forgets about it, edits it, forgets about it. And I've got a couple novel ways of doing that. And I can go into that more, but well, actually, I'll just go into it right now. One is just targeting top level elements and replacing them, or inserting before them or after them. So identifying a function definition as a location in the code base, and then saying, hey, I'll replace this. And so instead of shipping, like most of the time, these coding agents, they ship text to match and a replacement text. With this, you're just shipping a name of a function to match. And so you don't have any problems with white space matching. And then it can just replace the whole function. And so it's just easy to match and then easy to replace based on that match. And so it leads to edits that take every time. All right. And so anyway, so basically I ended up spending time kind of cultivating this set of tools that worked together harmoniously and that borrowed a lot from the tools that Claude Code, the command line tool for Claude. I borrowed a lot of the tool, like the idea of the tool set that it has. It borrowed a similar action space or a similar set of tools. Like I expanded the tool set. Too many tools doesn't work. I shrunk it down until I started getting a flow out of the agent that really works. Okay, breathe. Okay, and another part of cultivating these tools is not just the set of tools, it's the prompts. Like each tool has a description that kind of provides a description to the LLM how to use it. And so you have to spend time cultivating and changing what that says in order for the LLM to behave the way you want it to. Okay, you know what, I'm gonna stop for a second and no. I wanted to check in and make sure that we're heading in a direction that's useful for people, or let me see. So that's a general overview of what Clojure-MCP is, MCP tools are, what my discovery upon creating this set of tools, or what happened is as I tuned it, it became more productive, more productive, more productive. And it started displaying really nice arcs from the question that you presented to its use of tools through an arc of using the REPL first to explore and validate. After that, it can start editing code files. Then it would reload the code files and make sure that they load in the REPL. Then it would validate that the code that it wrote in the files, it would load it in the REPL with require reload, and then it would start exercising the functions and things that it wrote. It would also write, so it would use eval, the REPL, a lot. It would use it at the start, then it would write some code, then it would start verifying the code in the file, and then when it would verify the code in the file, it would set up test harnesses. It would set up mocking and all kinds of things so it could verify it on its own. Things that you would never be able to do in the REPL on your own. You just wouldn't do. You would set it up in a file. But this is ephemeral code. It would just do it, test things, and let it go. That behavior was pretty good. But then Claude 4 came out. And it went from being pretty good to extremely good. And that was when I was like, I have to let people see this. You know, this is my own thing. I'm messing around with it. But when Claude 4 came out, it completely changed how it was behaving to really align with what I was wanting from it. And yeah, and so I released it. Let's stop. Can we stop there and see if people are getting what they want out of this, or if people have some questions? Or do you want me to?
Yeah, I think that's great to continue. And yeah, people will just ask. Oh yeah, Winky Wooster.
Yeah, so I find it really helpful. Can you hear
Actually,
me?
I do want to. Yeah. Can I interject one thing? You've used Clojure-MCP already, right? Right? Correct?
I have. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I've gotten it like hooked up but I haven't gotten to the place where like I'm ready to like start charging ahead. I still don't quite understand how things work.
Okay.
So, but no,
Okay.
what I was gonna say, I find it super helpful, like saying how you approach the problem, how you know, had a whole set of things and you've narrowed it down now to something that's very useful. So that's really cool. The question I have is what kind of time frame when you started to the point that you actually released? How long was that?
Okay. That was, well, 2 months. I mean, maybe 2.5 at this point. 2.5. And 2.5 going from never writing an API call to, like 2 months from never having used any of these things to now. And actually, the most of the work was not making the code look nice. Just like this is alpha code. Most of the work was getting the behavior I wanted. And yeah. But I used it a lot. I dog fooded a lot during that time. And dog fooding is actually really dangerous because it understands, like when I say dog fooded, I mean I worked on Clojure-MCP with Clojure-MCP. And the problem with that, because it's reading all the code, it understands how to use itself, right? It's working on itself. Therefore, it has a lot more context to how all these tools work. And so I had to break off and work on other things in order to verify that that it's working okay. So that's just a note for people who are doing these things. If it'll use the code it's reading and writing as more context to use the tools better. So that can be misleading. It can be misleading. You go to another project and you're like, oh, it doesn't have the context of the whole code base. So, all right. The other thing I would like, maybe before I start, is like could we motivate this with like people who have actually used it, just saying whether or not they found it helpful and whether they found it awesome or meh. But I hope, I'm hoping for the former, but yeah. Anybody?
I have used it, so it was incredible. Like whatever things I couldn't do, I'm able to do with Clojure now. So yeah, especially on the UI building stuff, and it builds like quite good UI because of Claude. So yeah, it's quite helpful for me.
Are you using the ClojureScript REPL as well attached to it, or just
Just a REPL, because our most of the files are in CLJC. So if it works in CLJ, so it works in browser as well. So not the shadow CLJs. No, I was trying to like I didn't spend time in setting that up yet. Maybe sometime later once the whole thing is working.
Well, that's great. And yeah, so the reason, yeah, I wouldn't. So I think what I'm trying to what I'm trying to get at is that this is a significant experience, and it's a pain to set up, but it's worth it, right? This is early. It's super early. It is a pain to get it set up. And I mean, I spent an hour and a half with Borkdude trying to get this set up, in a container for him, because he's like, it's not touching my system. I'm not doing it. So he's like, I'm not doing a val on my system. So it took a while and a lot of misunderstandings and going back and forth. Right now, before I started the talk, I'm spending time on the README so that it's more clear as to what this all means. I think I will cover setup later. Let me just write that down just for hints. But so I'm just gonna it is worth it because it is not like other coding assistants, especially if you're a Clojure programmer. All right. Because again, the use of the REPL is the killer app, just like it's the killer app for Clojure, right? The REPL, when you see it write a function, when you see it package up in a val, it writes a function. It doesn't throw it in a file, start creating artifacts. And especially if you ask it to start in the REPL, it will do this. It'll write the function. If the function doesn't work and it's having trouble, it'll then write the function again with print line statements everywhere with like markers, just like you would. It adds like 30 print lines to it. And then it runs the function again and it says, oh, I found the problem. And then it'll rewrite the function along with, it'll send this in one eval. It'll send one function with, 5 or 6 tests of it, right? And just like you would do, but much slower. It does it much faster. All that, all those extra little expressions that you have in your file as you're developing, like, oh, I want to exercise this function. Well, it does like 30 of those or 5 of those or whatever. It does it, and it does it so well that you realize even if it didn't write a lick of code, it would be the most excellent REPL assistant where you just say, it's hooked into your REPL and you said, hey, I just wrote this function. Can you look at it and try it out in a bunch of ways and see if I got this right? And then it'll do it. And it'll bang on it, fuzz test it, and you didn't have to do anything, right? It just didn't, yeah. And so I don't know. I can't emphasize enough that the stateful REPL is kind of a killer app for all of this. And it's unique to us Lispers, in our conception of programming in a lot of ways. Because if you look at what's out there and the tooling that's out there and the way that code is evaluated in coding assistant tools, it's boxed and narrow and it's unable to, and so it can't interact with your application. It can't interact with the code as part of a larger application. So that's really something. Now, to hammer on that a bit more, the bugging is ridiculous. It's ridiculous, right? Let's say you have a bug that you're going to work 4 hours on, that you thought was going to be 5 minutes, and you're going to work 4 hours on. It's worth it for you to spend the 2 hours to set up Clojure-MCP. I'm hoping it'll be shorter than that, but it's worth it for you just to set it up and then ask it to trace your bug down. Because what it will do, if you just give it access to the REPL, it'll load your code, you tell it the bug you have, and it'll chase it down. First, it'll read a bunch of files, and then it'll start evaluating things. And like I've had a bug, a weird bug, a character, one of those things where it's getting a character instead of a string somewhere, and I was like, it was somewhere, and I kept getting this character sequence, characters, not a character sequence bug intermittently. I didn't know where it was happening or what was going on. So I just asked it, what this bug is happening. I don't know where it's happening. And then it just went through my code, went right to it, narrowed it down, said it's right here. And of course you're dubious, right? You're like, there's no way that you solve this in 3 minutes. There's just no way. And then you look at it, and then you look at the reasoning process and its evaluations, and you're like, I think that's it. Because you don't believe it at first. You really, there's just no way that it can just solve a bug like that. It can, and it will, and it will do it well. Like in the gene chem, like yesterday with Bortude, we took our time setting, we set it up, and it was brutal. And then he sicked it on a bug that he had the previous day. He rolled back his code, and it was in another branch, and so he just put it on his main line, and it just found it. It was like he watched it, and he was like blown away. He couldn't believe that it went right to the bug, correctly diagnosed it, and then wrote quote code that was somewhat similar to his to fix it, and applied it to the file. And so I just want to say, I'm just trying to motivate that it's valuable. And that it's valuable with Claude 4. Like everybody who has experience in this area with coding assistance, everybody has preconceived ideas about how coding goes with coding assistance, and they want to just set it up using these preconceived ideas. Just try it the way with the Clojure-MCP tools in Claude Code or in Claude Desktop, or one of these. This is an important thing. Try them together in the setup that I recommend, so that you can at least understand the performance of it that I'm experiencing. And then you could try other models and try other things, but you may notice a downgrade. But if you don't, it's just really important to try the curated experience first, and then you'll be able to make informed decisions about what's next. Okay.
There is a little question in the chat, if that is a good
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carol is saying, oh, would you like to use your voice, Carol?
Well, your enthusiasm is really persuading me to just dive in and then go for it. I'll just take a day on Monday to set it up and make sure I'll have it into my fingers by the end of the day. So I'm gonna spend the day on it, and it's also the fact that the track you went through, you explored this, you discovered this yourself, and now you're sharing it with us. So it's really it's vibrating. So you got me. I can't stop now. So I'm gonna try.
Well, Caro, do you have any other questions or no? That's okay. That's okay. Does anybody else have any, like, again, I'm giving a broad overview, but I would really like some reflection from the group if how I can be most helpful in this talk. If anybody has any more questions or yeah, or maybe I missed a question and didn't answer it. So anybody? Okay. If not, okay. So okay, somebody mentioned they were bored. Okay, so I remember that. So here's the deal. If you set this up, you will no longer be bored. Unfortunately, there's a weird dopamine thing that happens when you start using these tools. It's you get like they work very well. It starts, it works really well. You ask it to do something, it does it, and then you get this dopamine hit. And because you're like, God, I didn't have to write that code. Or wow, that was amazing. I want to see it again. And then you ask it to do something else, and it was amazing, and I want to see it again. And so the boredom ends, and you end up actually putting in a lot longer hours than you ever intended. I don't know if anybody else could speak to that, but it's very, and it's good and bad, right? Because you having like a lot of power, like being able to create things quickly means you don't put enough effort into thinking about what you're going to create ahead of time. And this is a common problem with REPL development anyway, where you're like, oh, I can start executing code immediately and not think about, like the overall arching design. And it's the same thing with these tools too. I can greenfield a project or greenfield a library and a namespace and then not put enough thought into it. But the great thing is you can greenfield something, look at it, and then it can inform you on what a nice, like, so you can greenfield something really quickly with these tools, and then it'll inform you as to what you really want. And so you just throw it away and think more deeply about what you're wanting, and then you can move forward from there. Okay, so that leads to, should I use this to write code or the REPL coding? So the REPL is 100% of a win. It will make you more productive. It will find bugs. It will help you discover algorithms, right? And it'll do it better than an online chat session, because it has the context of your code. So one thing I often do is I'm like, okay, I need an algorithm to wrap lines, I'm getting a stream of things and I want it to be a stateful function that gets called with a new things. And I want to insert, new lines at the right point, right? And yeah, I could write that. But it can write that very well, right? So I'd like you to design this algorithm in the REPL. It'll go through, design it, blah, 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 blah. And all the code it writes in the REPL is discovery. And then you can have it write it out at the end if you like what it's done, right? Now, so the REPL is a clear win, and it's helpful for research. It's helpful for finding bugs. It's helpful for all these things. It is, so the code, right, is a different beast. And that's where Claude 4 comes in, I really think. Like, coding is, within a larger project, it's a different beast, and it can work very, very well, right? And I'm getting really good results. But it's not as clear a win as the REPL, right? Although maybe it is a win and I'm doing it all the time, but I think that this takes more, it takes more guidance. You want to be more attentive when it's writing code. Some people want to just leave it, let it write the code, and that's just not me. I don't think I could do that. And that's another, I'm just going to keep it, diving off in different paths. And that's another thing that I think is really important, is that being present as part of the coding process, even though you could probably just send Claude Code off and forget about it, like the CLI tool or something else to do it autonomously behind your back, being part of the coding process is human. It's a human need to be present in part of creation. And you have a lot to offer in this area, right? Because let me put it another way. Claude, like these LLM assistants, they can write code, but they couldn't write Clojure-MCP. There's just no way, right? There's no way that they can come up with this. They're not, they don't see the world that way. They don't, it's a new, it's just, Now, if they can, and if somebody automates it so that they can, then it's a different world. And who knows, that could be next week. But right now, they cannot. So you need, the guidance is needed. Now, especially if you're doing something novel. If you have a pattern in your code base that it's easily recognizable, it will eat that up in, so like I have an established pattern for creating tools in the MCP, in Clojure-MCP, in the code base itself. If I ask it to create a new tool that does such and such, it will eat that up and spit out a new tool, no problem. And I have very little worry about how that's going to come out. But yeah, if you're doing something a little more novel and you care about how it's integrated into your code base, you're going to want to be present or really look at the diff, when you're done. Look at the Git diff when you're done. You're always, when you go accomplish something, you're going to want to commit it. And the Clojure-MCP has a bash tool, so you can just ask it to commit your code, and it will, right? It'll give it a nice message and summarize what you did in the session. Okay, you know what? So I hope you are patient with my going down different paths here. So since now I'm talking about coding practices, I think I should take a step back. In Clojure-MCP, in fact, should I share my screen, everybody? Does that sound like a good idea? Okay. All right. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to just say, why? Can I do the entire screen? Yeah, okay. Let's do it. The entire screen. All right. And let me just come here. Blah, blah, blah.
While we are doing
Okay.
that, kind of settling in, maybe I'll just mention that we have half an hour till the official end. And, to those who wish to stay longer, some people often stay longer and chat. And so, yeah, we have lots of time, I believe. Yeah, so, yeah, just wanted to say that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to start a new coding session. I'm just going to start a new chat. All right. And this is in Claude Desktop. And Claude Desktop is just a locally running version of Anthropic's LLM chat interface. It's the same as their online one. It just runs locally, which makes it have access to local servers, which is super convenient. All right, and right now it's attached to Clojure-MCP. The way you know this is you come down here and it says add from Clojure-MCP, all right? And also in here under the tools, you'll come down here to Clojure-MCP and you'll see all these tools. And these tools you can individually enable and disable. I could probably go through these tools and say what each one of those do, but and maybe I will in just a second. When you're programming, you want to give some, if you want things to get started quickly in your project, you want it to have some context. You want the agent to have some context. So let's see what context we're in actually. So when I hit, did you see me do that? Let me do that again. Go down to Clojure-MCP. So the MCP protocol provides resources and prompts, right? So not only does it provide tools, it provides prompts and resources. Resources you can think of as files for now. They could be more sophisticated than that, but for our purposes, they're files. Now, this file is just my README, right? So if I click on it, so it's the README of the project that is attached at the nREPL endpoint. All right. Clojure-MCP has two pieces. The Clojure-MCP process itself, which is a server, and it connects to an nREPL, which is you start in your project, right? We all hopefully have done this, but you start an nREPL endpoint in your project. When the Clojure-MCP, you start up your nREPL, then you start up Clojure-MCP, it talks to nREPL, and then actually you start up nREPL, then you start Claude Desktop. Claude Desktop starts the Clojure-MCP server, and that speaks to your nREPL. Is that clear? Everything? Okay. Now, Clojure-MCP provides a way to load information about your program and your project quickly so that you can get started programming right away. So like Clojure Project Info here is an introspection into your nREPL, okay? It ships code over the nREPL, collects a bunch of data, and then sends it back, all right? And so it goes in there, it looks at the deps Eden, it looks at the versions, it finds the source paths, it finds a working directory. So now all this information is available for the agent, right? It's got some dependencies, it's got namespaces and the files in this case. So that helps jumpstart a session. And you kind of get it for free with Clojure-MCP. You didn't have to prepare this context. All right, another thing that you can do is you can load a project summary, which is like basically a greater summary about your project to provide more context. All right. And this is Rebel AI anyway, this is my command line tool for running Clojure-MCP. Okay, so anyway, what it is unimportant. It's a file with details about your project to give more context to the LLM. And I did not create this file myself. I have the LLM create the file. And the way you can do that is go back here. So these are resources. And I have this as a standard for coding, like how do you like to code Clojure? If you put that in the root directory, if you have a project, if any of these things are in your root directory, you just click on it and it's available in the chat to provide context to the LLM about what you're working on. And so normally I like add this, I add this, I add this, and then I add a prompt. All right. And so see the icon here, this is a prompt. And these are resources. And prompts can be parameterized. In this case, this one is not. And this is a prompt that I developed to develop Clojure code and took some hints from Claude Code's prompt. And with my workflow of Explore, oh, actually, that's got to go. That's not even right. Anyway, there are no namespace symbol tools. Oh, there are. Develop, critique. Yeah. So it doesn't actually follow this that well. So anyway, got distracted. I add this, and it is helpful. Obviously, I need to do a little work on it. So I add those things, all 4 things at the start of a conversation. Obviously, it'd be nice if they're all packaged in one thing. You just hit it and start But another thing I did here is I have this prompt to get you started, right? Like, so you come in, brand new project, you actually went through the rigmarole of hooking all this up. The first thing you're gonna wanna do is hit maybe this, and then hit create update project summary, right? And that's just a small prompt to explore your code base and create a file that describes it. So this can be like this work gets front loaded for you. It does the exploration this time, then you can just load it later on. It also updates it, right? If there is a project summary, then just look around and update it if it needs to be updated for any new information that it needs. And so at the end of a coding session, you can hit this prompt. And when I say it's going to load it here, you're going to have an empty chat. So you can load prompts and have an empty chat, and then you can submit it, right? And so I could just submit this. And then I do have a project summary. So it will take a look around. So it's going to read the summary. So that's an important thing. You could just add prompts and then just submit them, right? It's reading it. Yeah, anyway, so we're at the beginning of a chat, so there's really nothing to add to it. I could say, can you explore the recent Git differences for the recent Git commits for any changes. Anyway, it doesn't matter, to be added. So, and then it'll just go look at, it'll look at the Git, right? It'll think about it, right? It'll really think about it. Anyway. And then, we don't have to see her watching this. This is actually not an accurate representation of what would happen because I added this sequential thinking tool, and so it's globbing the files. It's saying, okay, it's looking at the files, it's considering them against the project summary, blah, 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 blah. And it's gonna, anyway, in the end, it'll create an update for the project summary. And it's good to keep the project summary updated, and just so that when you start coding, you can just load it and get going. So I'm just gonna stop that. See the little button here? Okay, we're not gonna keep going. And now another thing is you can change your mind. Like, you can edit in this interface. You can edit and go off in a different direction. You say, let me turn off. I'm going to turn off. So you can turn off editing. So I'm going to turn off these edit tools. All right, great. So now it can bash, it can eval, I'm going to say, what did I just recently? I added a color theming system. Can you look at it and see if it is mentioned in the summary? Yeah. So I changed direction, and when you do that, it creates a fork, and you can edit and go back and forth in that fork. So it's a very convenient feature. Oh, it is extensively documented. Great. Okay. Can you test test it a bit in the REPL. Yeah, and it will, right? It's loading it. Oh, is the REPL not working? Oh, yeah, the REPL's not running, so. Oh, no, I turned it off. No, it's on. Anyway. REPL AI. Did I turn it off? No. Anyway, I'm going to show you something you do a lot. You close. Start this. I restarted my nREPL connection. I'm not sure why the REPL wasn't working. That was kind of a new one. And it could probably maybe due to recent changes that are local for Clojure-MCP. So when you do that, right, you can just come back to your conversation, right? And you haven't lost anything. This is a very nice, right? And also, I said before, you could fork, right? So you can come back here, and if you have another conversation, you're back in that original one where I talked about the git commits. And then you go over here, and you're now talking about your summary. So you can manage context up and down a tree and fork off at different points. And it's helpful for exploring things and then saying that's not a great idea. I'm going to go back and do that. So edit. Just so I'm resubmitting this one because I don't know why the REPL didn't work. Because that would be awesome for this talk. Yes. So the REPL did work. I don't know what was going on. I didn't prepare anything before, so it wasn't able to compile. So it wasn't able to find the init themes function. So it used ns_publics to see what was available in themes. He's like, oh, wait, there is no init themes there. All right. And so then it checks color. It's like, oh, it found it. So again, when I say it uses the REPL well, I mean it. It's like, oh, it tried to execute init themes in the wrong namespace, right? It's like, why isn't it there? Why is it in color, by the way? I don't know. It's obviously confusing for it. It's confusing for me. So, and then it says, yeah, let's see what themes are registered. Okay, I'm going to create and print out some colored text. Let's look at what these actually are. What is the response text? And let's see and so it just runs through it, and like I just asked it to explore, it's exploring. And keep in mind, while it's exploring here, it's creating context, right? It's creating information that can be used as you continue the chat. All right. So and for people, I'm assuming that everybody knows a lot of things, and I need to be, with every chat submission, the whole thing gets submitted. So the whole context gets sent back so the color system's working perfectly. All the colors work as expected, blah, 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 blah. And so it just ran through there and tested things, poked around. And I didn't even, that is just a very mild demonstration of what eval can do. Do people have questions? Because this may be a perfect spot for that. Anybody? No? I'm going to drink something.
Quick question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to make an observation. It's helpful to watch you do this, like when that error came up and you debugging it. It's helpful to see that kind of stuff. So this is cool.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Absolutely agree. Just a small question. How does the evaluation process know when to stop?
That's just so that's just the LLM judging whether it has completed the task, right? It's agentic. And so just to give like detail, like I'm just going to give a small details about how this works, right? The agent, like when a submission is made to the API for a chat, for any LLM, it submits a list of tools that are available to it. And when it has a list of tools, it basically has one directive: choose a tool or chat something out to the interface, right? I'm either going to respond a tool call or I'm going to respond to the interface, right? And chat something back and end my turn, right? But if it responds with a tool, the tool will come, that call will come back to the machine will call Clojure-MCP, it'll get a result. That result is submitted as a response, right? And so if it sends back a tool call, it's going to get a result as a response, and then that response prompts it to keep going, right? Yeah, and otherwise, if it spits out text without a tool call, then it won't keep going. So that's basically what's it's deciding tool call, just end the conversation, end my turn here, and yeah. So that's just some detail about that. Gosh. So
there was a question by Timothy, I believe. I think Timothy want to say something.
Oh, thanks so much. Hopefully I'm not taking away too much time, but can you drive this from Emacs? I'm thinking of GPTL, of course. And if so, how would that work with the context tree? That's the first one. I actually have a few, but let's start there.
Yeah. Well, let's stay on there. Stay on. You don't need to mute yourself, so we can converse about this. So you can drive this with GPTL. You definitely can. You can set it up with GPTL. And no, but you don't get any tree, right? Like so it's the client, right? Like the client determines the features, right? So this is some money is went into this client.
Right.
Here,
yeah.
Buckets and buckets and buckets of money have gone into this client, and so it has more features, like retry and copy, and like these things are all you can do in Emacs, and you can definitely run it in Emacs, and I have. It's just, yeah, it's not as good, right?
Okay.
It's just not as good. But you can't. But the thing is, if you can't run Claude desktop on Linux apparently, or you can if you get, you can if you try really, really, really hard apparently. But you don't want to try that hard. So there are other clients called like LibreChat and OpenWeb, and there are a bunch of them that you can run and hook up to the MCP. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So the other thing,
maybe before we continue, I think there was a comment by John in the chat.
Yeah.
Seems to be related. John, if you wish to say, if you wish to use your voice, or about Anthropic's CEO saying they're going to pull back on its eagerness to keep plowing forward.
Yeah, I forgot the word they used. It wasn't eagerness, but essentially the same thing. They're saying that it's super eager. It'll spin. So, and sometimes it goes so fast that it spins too much, and you want to stop it. Bruce, what do you think about that?
Yeah. John has used this a lot, and it can go. But it depends, John. Like your context is a little different. Using the task system, it's gonna run like a bunny. Is this what you're talking about? In the context of the task system, or outside of the context of the task system?
Yeah, I'd say both.
Okay.
And like you said, the sense in which it can like litter up your if you let it keep on going without any direction, it can kind of get real messy. So
Yeah.
in that sense, yeah, sometimes it's a little too eager, and it just, if you let it go without any direction and discipline, then it can get really messy.
Yeah. And so yeah, that's definitely a good point. That stop button is really important. So, but I haven't found myself using it as much lately. It seems to have a nice arc. Another thing is I'm trusting it more. Like, because sometimes you'll read something and like, I don't know if you have a partner and they say something and you didn't quite interpret exactly what they were saying, and you instantly suspicious that they're wrong. This is not a mistake I make, but it like that's what happens here too, right? You see something go by on the screen and you're like, wait, he's way out of bounds, and then you'll stop it and then you'll read and you'll be like, no, that was right, I was wrong.
Yeah, you'll find yourself
So
cussing at it and like, oh, I'm sorry, I cussed at you. Actually, that's
yeah.
you're right.
You're way right, and I didn't even consider that at all. So as and I think that it's a good fork to this is a relationship. Like, this is totally weird and different, and it's not something you just do out of the box. You got to spend time relating to it to understand how to work with it the best, right? And this whole exercise of mine was, okay, this is, and I said it in the other video, this is coming whether we want to or not, regardless of our preconceptions of it or not, regardless of anything. It's just coming. And as programmers, like, we have two choices here, right? Like, we can have our preconceptions about what it means, or we can just face it and see what it is and how it relates to what we do.
Can I ask,
And
sorry, can I ask a
yeah,
quick follow on just before we go, of as a threshold, or is there a threshold for when and where for the run on code, for example, a threshold for when and where the code actually, well, let's say gets written to file? So I think you mentioned earlier that it stays in memory. But yeah, is there a finality? Is it, okay, this is good, or as good as we're going to get, let's write this to file, or we're done, right?
it's really fluid, right? It's extremely fluid. Like, if you ask a simple, like, if you prompt it with, let's work on this in the REPL to start, it'll work on the REPL in the start. If you say, I want to do this, it'll start writing files. It'll start writing the files, right? If you say, I want to do this thing, and it's like a concise thing, it'll probably just write the files, and then after it's written the files, then evaluate the code that's in the files. It'll reload the file and start evaluating things. So it's basically that two-way street. You like, can we work on this in the REPL first? Prompts it to work on the REPL first. And otherwise it'll just start writing code and work in the REPL afterwards. Or it'll do, but it's just fluid. It's just kind of how you interact with it.
You can direct
drives
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's incredibly directable. And yeah, because you have to think, so many things to talk about. So the thing, like the thing about,
fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, I know, Bruce, you wish to say something, and we're stopping you for a while. And
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
That's great that we're having this dive into details. I'll just say we have 7 minutes to the official time, and as much as you like, Bruce, it would be great to keep going as much as you wish.
Okay.
Probably.
Well, I'm willing to, as long as people are.
So maybe we'll take
not here, as long as they're getting something out of it.
Yeah, so what I'm recommending is that we will finally let you keep going, and then you may take a moment to conclude for a moment, just for those.
Okay.
And then you can keep going, and we'll keep stopping you again and again as much as that's good for you.
Okay, so so is now a good time to conclude, or what you're saying?
I think you were going to say something and I stopped you like 5 times already. So maybe you'll continue a little bit, and then you may wish to take a moment to have an intermediate conclusion.
Okay. Let's see where I was. So yeah, so we were talking about the flow of it. Yeah, it's really fluid. And you know, as we cut, like, yeah, it's helpful if I'm gonna do like a conclusion to back up a bit and talk about. It's helpful to back up a bit and let me just say something about what I think about how this relates to Clojure. Specifically, I think, you know, we've been led to believe that, and it was easy thing to believe that these models were trained on Go and Python and these other dominant programming languages that have reams and reams and reams and reams of code out there, and that they're just not going to perform as well for bespoke languages like Clojure, right? They're not gonna work that well, and it's not true. It's just not true at all. And in my experience is that Clojure could potentially be a better vehicle because of, well, first of all, because of the REPL, but also the things that make it work well for humans. The things that like make it ergonomic for human beings, except for the parentheses, the things that make Clojure ergonomic for human beings make it ergonomic for the LLMs. And that is something I've run into over and over again. Things that are hard for human beings are hard for LLMs, right? You know, concurrent code, state, all these things, you know, poorly like laid out code bases, you know, the things that aren't organized, all these things that are difficult for us are difficult for the LLM, right? And so it's just Clojure itself is very ergonomic when it comes to thinking, when it comes to understanding the delimitation, like the functional code without state is it lends itself to thinking abstractly about problem solving. And it seems that the LLM takes to it, you know, and that could be a hot take. We'll just call that a hot take. So I think there's just great potential to take something like Clojure-MCP and just get a lot of value out of it, a lot more value out of it than you ever thought was possible with doing assisted coding with Clojure, and maybe get more value out of it than people who are using other tools in other languages. And that, I mean, that's, as I say, it's hard to believe, right? But I think a part of me really believes it. You know, like the REPL experience, along with the functional programming, with the idea that you're guiding the output and you're guiding what's built and you're guiding what library is made and you're guiding the API to the library, right? You're reflecting on, you're saying this API is not going to survive, right? Like we need to generalize this, or we need to do something like that. It's a really unbeatable combo, and it's a very productive combo in my experience. Yeah. And if you want to just, you know, and the corollary here is that unguided code, like if you use these tools without intervention, they will create a ton. They will just spew things all over the place and create like something that's unmaintainable, right? And so you need to be there. You know, they're very good at creating code. They're not good at creating maintainable code. They want to be, but they're not. And so you need to be there, and it's fun to be there. You know, I'll just say it's fun to be part of the process, and it's fun. Like And also, I am using these tools, but also I'm programming for 4 hours at a stretch without them. You know, like I'm using them and I'm not using them. And I'm having to make the decision. Is it more efficient to use the tool? Is it more efficient for me to write this section, right? Like when I was integrating like Fig Wheel and Shadow and stuff like that, I was not going to ask it to do that. That was just going to be nuts. It's just going to be a waste of time. You know, it made more sense for me to hunker down and just figure out all the connecting bits and make those connections myself. So yeah, now there are definitely times when I'm coding by hand where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe yeah. And a lot of time, and there's all kinds of patterns that emerge. You'll write the code by hand, and then you'll ask it to review it. You'll start writing the code by hand. Now, this is a great way to prompt is to start writing your library or what you're trying to write, and then have it look at what you've written. And that's a great way to kind of get it going. It's a prompt to start going, and it'll fill in all the details and look at the edge cases for you. So that's more of a branch than a conclusion. So anyway, yeah. If it's hard for humans, it's hard for AI. And I think that Clojure has something unique to offer in this space, in that the REPL provides an incredibly quick, rich feedback. And it's quick, right? Because it's just evaluating once. It's not having to write code and then run something to evaluate it, right? It's just boom, writing out the code, getting the feedback, done, right? And so it's not having to write whole file. It's just much quicker, and the feedback is much richer, and that feedback allows it to perform much better. I think that's, I mean, anything else I need to say, you guys, to sum this up? Oh, maybe like, I encourage people to try this. I'm sorry that it's not easy to try. That's kind of as designed, because I can't, like, this is not ready to be formulated into a slick command line tool that handles all sorts of configuration and handles all the edge cases. Like, that's not what this is right now. This is an experience. It's meant for experienced practitioners, and but it is worth it to try it, because yeah, it's worth it to try it, period.
You know, Bruce, sorry, I hope I'm not monopolizing here, but I actually have a to-do item to prototype what I call an intelligent assistant, which is just a desktop LLM with leverages agentic properties and so on. Now, it's interesting that you said a slick command line interface, because I noticed your screen, it flashed, you had this Rebel AI, which is command line interface. Is that something, I think my eyes didn't deceive me. Is that something that you're going to release sooner or later?
I don't know. I mean, it's a more ambitious, it's a UI, and so it's a more ambitious project. I'll give it a try. I'm going to give it a try and see how it goes. I may just keep it to myself. Well, just in the sense that projects like that need a lot of work and attention, and releasing it to the public.
Right.
Releasing it to the public is just like, there would have to be a group of people who are like, we're gonna get into this together. But people often say that, but then they don't. Yeah, I'm gonna contribute.
It sounds like a great startup, honestly. So yeah, there's an idea.
Yeah, and and it might be something that I monetize or something like that. If it, but it's not. But here's the deal, like, you can use Clojure-MCP to create a command line chat interface that consumes these tools. Like, the naive version of this is a version of a command line chat that consumes Clojure-MCP is entirely achievable, but the more sophisticated version that meets everybody's needs is much more difficult. So if you want your own little chat assistant. Now mine is fun because it's Rebel readline. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you just say chat, and then it pops into chat, and then you pop out, and then you can try
Right.
things, and you pop it anyway. Yeah. So
Right. Cool.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Cool.
Anything else?
Yeah. Can I ask, Bruce? I think maybe I'll repeat something that comes up again and again in these meetings, and this is the question of how much can we keep the narrative of what we've been doing? I mean, you have had a session diverging and coming back and restarting, and then can we look into that session as data in a certain way? Can we have a log and reason about it, and maybe turn that log into something which is easy to handle from the Clojure side, or to render as a report and so on? Is it something that you find valuable, or that you've been trying to do?
Yeah. I would say that sounds lovely, and I think it sounds lovely, and I think it's an important thing to do. It's a meta task to what I'm personally focused on right now, just because these tools sound easy, right? Write file, like they're not. They're not easy to make so that they work every single time. So it would be fairly straightforward if you read the docs on Clojure-MCP to hook into the tools and collect every single tool call, right? It is there right now if you want to collect the tool calls. What you will not get is, because it's a client, you won't get the chat in between, right? If you do that kind of hook in. And so you would need other tools to catch, say, the API calls between the client like Claude Desktop and the internet, or something like that, to get. There's something called Claude Trace. So if you did that, you could probably get all the information, and meaning all the tool calls, all the tool responses, and everything. And actually, Claude Trace handles all that. Apparently, you can start, but it's meant for Claude Code. So that's the thing. It's meant for Claude Code. So yeah, I think it's incredibly important, and it's something that we, as a group, we should think about, like, and implement. But again, it's a meta concern to where I'm at right now, which is what is this experience in the immediate, and is it helpful for people? And yeah, that answers your question, I think.
Yeah.
I'll chime in and say that I'm working on a task system that kind of solves that problem, but I don't want to derail this whole conversation because it's kind of a whole different ball of wax.
Okay, so is the video, is that what's going on now, or?
So yeah, so we are a little over the official time, which is amazing, and it looks like everybody's glad to be here. And as much as you like, Bruce, we could keep going with the recording or without the recording. Either way would be amazing. And sometimes it is kind of nice to stop recording at some point, and then beautiful things happen. But whatever you find good for sharing a little more of what you care about.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about what's helpful for people, first of all, I'd like feedback. We can keep recording, first of all. That is fine if it's fine with everybody else. I wish I'd combed my hair. I keep seeing myself anyway, keep seeing myself in the video here, and I'm like, oh, you could have spent a little more time. but I just wanted to look like a crazy programmer. So that was what I was going for. So it's helpful. A couple of things are helpful to know. I'm gonna go back through this conversation here, and I think maybe point some things out to make this helpful for people and to describe like how the different tools work. Actually, there's not a lot of tool use here. I might need to go to a different, but when this renders the first time, when you get this call back, right? It's all closed. You can open it and see what it did, right? You can see the evaluation. You can see the arguments, basically. It's got code that it submits, and then it gets back the response for this initial require, right? Which is nil. And then there's a delimiter. And it gets another response back for the next require, you get a nil, and then another delimiter, and then it got a syntax error. Boom, right? Because this doesn't exist in that namespace. All right. And I'm not sure. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Different problem. So when it first comes back, this response is rendered as JSON, and it's harder to read. But if you wait, it will render in something that's much easier much easier for you to read. So just something to know that what's in here is actually legible and helpful for you to understand the behavior of the system. All right. Yeah.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bruce, quick question for the tool. For the tool use, I know for tool use for say for GPTL, that's ELISP. For Claude Desktop, I think that's JavaScript. Clojure-MCP is obviously the tools, I believe, are going to be in Clojure. So how does that wire together, like Clojure running on, or JVM, a bytecode running on MCP? Do you know the actual wiring, how that happens? How is the Java thing able to execute or evaluate? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because you're coming from a Java background, correct?
Yeah, I was like many moons ago. I was a Java programmer, but yeah.
You're a Clojure programmer now, or
Yes, exactly, Clojure programmer.
So maybe I misunderstood your question. So how does the code?
The Claude Desktop, I think, or I understand that its MCP server is in JavaScript, or is written in JavaScript, or evaluates JavaScript.
No,
Okay, I misunderstood that.
No. So that's the MCP server can be written in anything. Clojure-MCP, so an MCP server can be written in anything. Maybe we'll go over here and we'll just go to the README real quick. Just for reference, MCP servers are normally configured in a configuration file.
Yeah.
Okay, and they are run by the client. So this is the configuration file for Claude Desktop. You actually create this file because it doesn't exist. And then it says, boom, here's how you run this MCP server, right?
Okay.
And this is a command, and it runs the Clojure-MCP server, all right?
Got it. Okay.
In this case, with a port, right? And so it runs it. It's running Clojure. The Clojure-MCP server is Clojure, and yeah. And so now and keep in mind the REPL connection is not here, right? It's the REPL connection. This is connecting. This is a port to your end REPL server, and it's connecting to that server. So this runs on its own, and it's not part of any of your code base. All right. It's just its own little thing.
Okay.
Gotcha? Cool.
Yeah, makes sense.
Great.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Wait, in fact, am I still sharing my screen? I am, right?
Yes, you are.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. I got confused for a second. So here, read file. Let's look at this. One of the things you want to do with LLMs is not blast them with all kinds of information they don't need. And so the read file tool, when it gets a Clojure file, can read it in a collapsed view. Does that make sense to everybody? Like when you collapse a view in your editor or and then it can say what top level definitions it wants to look at. So let's look at what it gets back. It gets back like a preamble that says, hey, this is a collapsed view. And then it sends back the full namespace form, but then it sends back collapsed forms, except for the one it specified, which is get theme key, and the rest of it's collapsed. So what it's getting is an overview of the file with a drill down into what it was actually looking for. Does that make sense? So it says read file, but it's right under the hood, it's much more sophisticated in providing the context that the client is looking for. All right. Now, the way that, say, Claude Code does this and other clients is they kind of guess at a number range. They say read file between here and here. And this tool will do that as well when it's not a Clojure file. Here's a number range of the file to peek at, so I don't like fill myself up with extraneous context. So if you have, this helps if you have big files or whatever, but it's just helps, again, keep the focus and the context on the problem at hand. All right. And again, Clojure specific and benefiting from Clojure's delimiters and our rich tool system in CLJ rewrite and stuff like that. Let's see what we got over here. Is everybody okay with me touring some more tools? Is that okay? Does anybody, like, I want to make sure that people are understanding. If you are not understanding something, this is the opportunity. Like if you're like, I don't know what's going on, it's okay to say, I don't know what's going on. Because I think I can help. I can totally help. And that's what we're here for.
It works for me. And just to recap on the last thing you established, obviously Claude Desktop is connecting to an MCP server, in this case, the Clojure-MCP server. So it just clicked in my head, the light bulb went off my head that it can connect to a Clojure-MCP or a Datomic MCP or this, do you know what I mean? Different things. And that's the light bulb that went off. So I thought I'd just reiterate that to say that was very helpful. So.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, so I can go through a couple of the tools and show why they are special. I'm sorry, I am scrolling so fast here. So let's just look at this in general. So I started a session and I had this thing where I'm trying to change like an MCP tool into a tool that a LangChain agent can consume. Oh, shoot. I gotta write that. Just so I come back to it. All right. And so I started this chat and I was like, I have something that converts a tool from one thing to, one of my Clojure-MCP tools into something that just an agent can consume on its own in the background, right? I want it to be able to read files. I want it to be able to do all these things, but not edit code. I want it to be able to read file. I want to do all these things. And I want to be able to just take a task and do these things on its own and then report back, right? And then, so the schema I had for some reason, this schema was not getting parsed because by my tool. And by the code I had written already. So I was like, hey, I would like you to look at this and like some Java code from LangChain and just make it work. That's basically make it so that I can parse, easily parse and understand how to parse a schema, and this is a schema, and turn it into like a schema built of Java objects. So it's like, I just wanted to do this task, and I just wanted to give you a little context. So I just threw that file in there, and then it looked at it, did a bunch of thinking, and it's, and then it did some searches online, to learn more about this and the Java object schema, which LangChain uses. And then it figured it out. It says, okay, I think I can do this. All right. And this is another advantage of having like a richer interface that has access to the web and all the bells and whistles instead of, it's just nice. So now, then it says, okay, let me start to work with this, right? And let's write Java code. So it just printed that out, and I think it was just using that as a thought box. So it opened the REPL. This is something. Opened the REPL and just decided to print out a way to how I would do this in Java. Wait, did it do this the whole time? Yeah, it did. It just iterated on thinking about it by printing it out. So now it went down and said, okay, now in Clojure, this is how I would do it. So it just used this. This is a very odd thing. It printed it out. So it's a no-op. It was just using it as space to write code and then reflect on it. If you want to know more about that, just raise your hand. Or don't raise your hand, speak out or something. Then it did a Clojure eval and iterated on and started iterating on. Oh, it just came up with a solution. Unused binding type, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Anyway. Anyway, this is probably not the best. So can you look at the code that I have already and make it handle this? And so it went and it found the code that it needed to. It said, hey, okay, I asked it to look for this file, and it found it. It read it, right? And it read the collapsed version of it. And then it said, you know what, I want to read the whole file, read the whole file. And then it started editing the file. And this is where we get to, well, that's not going to work. And then it went to edit the namespace. Okay, and so what it did here is it used the Clojure edit tool effectively. And it said, hey, I want to edit the NS form, which is the top level form of a Clojure file. I want to replace it. And this is the identifier of the top level form. So it's namespace. This is the namespace. It's going to replace it. This is the path, right? And it's going to replace it with a new top level form. All right. And then it did. And then you'll get a diff afterwards where it removed some lines, right? And it added some other ones. And the same thing, it's going to just keep doing the same thing, right? It's going to, it changed the def multi, and that was successful. It continues on, and it continues on naming functions, right? It's a def multi. This is the identifier. And I want to, instead of replace it, I want to insert after this multi definition, I want to insert a new function, a new def method called mix types that handles this situation of parsing my Eden into its JSON object. Okay, is this helpful and at all, or is this boring as heck? So this Clojure edit makes successful targeted edits very consistently. So that, and it does it by targeting a top level form with a name and then an operation insert after, insert before, or replace. All right. And then it returns a diff so that it can know, so that the LLM knows what it did and if it was successful or if it just created a mess by mistake. Like, oh, I meant to do something different, and then it'll rectify it. All right. So again, so with these tools, it's just really important. When you're building tools for LLMs, it's very similar to building tools for people in that you want to provide rich feedback when they do something wrong. right? Like if you have an unforgiving tool, it'll just say there was an error, and then the human or LLM cannot do anything about it. So creating tools, I've learned you want to specify very carefully what you will accept to the LLM, but then accept as much as possible and correct it as much as possible. And then provide rich feedback if there's an error of any kind, and rich feedback if it's successful, so that you have this feedback loop of context and information coming back in the conversation. All right, I'm going to take a sip because I'm getting dry here. That's iced tea, not beer. Now, let's see. So now, and then it puts a nice so also it puts nice comment blocks at the end of the file. So it's for me to execute and test this code myself, right? So, a Clojure idiom is to put comment blocks at the end of the file so you can evaluate in your editor to see if something works. And so that's very handy for it to do. It's actually replacing the comment block that's already there. All right, and so Clojure edits S expression is a different operation, and it allows it to target functions, the inside of functions, right? It'll say, here's an S expression. I want to replace it with another S expression. And so that is, again, not relying on any white space. So it matches much quicker and fails rarely. Whereas if it was white space, it would be a problem. And it corrects for parens. Now, it just so happens that it's hard to target a comment block because it doesn't have an identifier. So in this case, it's just replacing the whole comment block as an S expression. It's taking the match form, which is the previous one, and it's replacing it with a new one. Yeah, match form, and the new form is here. Anyway, scrolling in this situation is not. So, and in the end, by the end of this conversation, it edits the files, and it tests them. It says, okay, let me test it. It gave it a little schema with the problem, and it said, okay, oh, that didn't work. So it said, oh, I did it wrong, right? It's like, oh, okay, I'll search online. Oh, that doesn't exist. Okay, great. I'll remove it. And then it moves on, right? It tries an operation that doesn't exist, delete, which I should probably add, right? I'm going to write that down right now. Add a delete operation. See, like, these are the things I learned. It tried to delete a def method, perfectly reasonable thing. It's not part of its schema, but I'm just going to support it now, right? And so now, since I know that they want to do these things, what does it expect is what's really important. I'll add this delete method. It's very easy. And then from now on, it would accept a wider range of things and be even more capable. So that's kind of the dev process, right? Like, how does it behave with these things? Okay. Bruce can talk forever, apparently. My God. And so anyway, it goes on to fix the problem it found. It wrote code that wasn't actually valid. And then it fixes that problem. And then it starts evaluating it, testing it, and testing it with larger examples. Oh, that was just, ooh, what's it doing? Anyway, it investigated another problem, continued. So this is really interesting. It investigated another problem, and then it starts evaluating more, solving the problem, and then changes the file, right? And then it changes the file wrong, and then try it again. And then it keeps going through this process of evaluating, testing to make sure the code is working, and editing, and da-da-da. So I think you guys get that idea. It's super magic. I didn't have to be even present for it. I walked away for this one because it was lunchtime or whatever. And then I came back and I looked at what it did. And then when I looked at it, it looked fine. I said, can we write tests for this? and then that's one thing that it's good for writing regression tests, but the tests are often super tight. And so it just tests everything from every angle. And, so your mileage may vary. It'll write tests. You're going to want to prune back the tests so it's more maintainable. But anyway, it wrote a bunch of tests. It edited them. It ran them, right? It ran them with a command. It gave the command a timeout. So this is a bash command. It got a result. And there were no errors. And another thing it will do is it will run the tests in the REPL as well. Like it'll just use the REPL connection and run the test. Oh my God, I've talked so much. My God. So that was that. Please ask me a question so I don't have to keep auto-generating here.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you a question. I think I saw you comment somewhere, maybe it was in the interview with, or in the session with Jean Kim, or just in the Slack channel, that you thought it would be even better with types. And I think you mentioned spec and Mali. And I'm wondering what your current thought about that is and how we could. Are you thinking about some specific way to incorporate it into Clojure-MCP?
So that's a couple questions. So the thing about types, right? I think everybody gets this, right? It's just a richer feedback, right? It's doing an eval, and it's writing the code. And if you have specs failing while it's running the code, then it gets precise answers, right? Otherwise, it'll print line through, like I said before, it'll use a lot of print lines to figure out what's going on. So I do think that spec and Mali and instrumenting the functions has a huge role here. And I highly encourage people to create prompts or add to prompts that they can just pop in here for Clojure-MCP to drive that kind of workflow or switch over. So one of the things you could do is, right, you're working along and you could pop in a prompt that says, now let's add specs to this and da-da-da. Or you can do a spec-driven approach, right, and start a session by writing specs and then letting the information gathered from that spec writing drive the creation of a library. But this is all great, like this is all room for experimentation. And I think this particularly for Clojure is a rich area, and I highly encourage people to explore with workflows like that because it just makes sense that, more feedback. And writing specs is, like when writing specs becomes easier because this can just generate it for you, it's more attractive. But like I said to Gene, it will create specs, but since it doesn't have a lot of insight into the code, because it'll put NAs or placeholders for things it just doesn't understand because it would have to run the code to find out what the type flow is. So, and that might be something to experiment with too, is have it run the code and improve the specs through discovery. But yeah, Lars, does that help with I'm not going to include it in Clojure-MCP yet or anything like that. It's just so far away from where I'm focusing on just getting this working well for people. But I'm very, very interested in that line of I have a feeling that people explore it, that they'll find an extremely rich opportunities there for sure.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. It's nice to hear your thoughts about it. Another quick question is, if you feel like sharing, what are your thoughts about taking Clojure-MCP further?
Further, I mean, like my roadmap right now is, again, noting down things like that delete that just happened. Like my roadmap right now is just to make the tools robust and responsive, because I feel like that is the biggest payback. It's the biggest bang for the buck right now. Like if the more productive the more these tools work well and work together and present a nice development arc to the user, for solving issues and stuff like that, or even exploring, the more productive everybody's going to be able to be with them, right? And so the actual tools themselves need more time and attention, even though they work. Like they work fine. It's just if the better that they work, yeah. So I guess right now, let me put it another way. I'm focused on making things work before I'm focused on making this again a slick command, making it a slick experience to start it up, because it's not a product. It's not there yet, right? It's not there in terms of, I mean, you could say, hey, I figured out a flow, and then you start like firming up config, firming up these things before enough people have explored what's the right way to do this, right? What's the right way to run servers, right? Right now, like my workflow is to start Claude Desktop and pay, in that global config for Claude Desktop, I have a single port number because it's easiest for me to deal with, right? Like, and then I just start things and kill them on that port to work on different projects. And then I just start and kill nRepls to work on different projects. That's what's most convenient in the workflow that I have, but it's not a slick experience, and it's not awesome. So like that whole story, I mean, it's better with Claude Code because they have local configuration. So you configure a port locally, and you can start your nRepl up on a different port, and you can run it independently and stuff like that. So, but with Claude, if people do use Claude Code, I just want to say, don't just hook Clojure-MCP into it. You have to eliminate the tools that are already there, that it's already using. And there's some information about that in the wiki. I don't recommend it. I can't recommend it as a first experience. But plenty of people are doing it. It just requires more. I think it just requires more to get started, because you have to be discerning about what tools you let Claude Code, its native tools, which ones you can keep and which ones you don't. So it's almost better to hook into something where you're a blank slate and this is the only tool set, and then you add other tools on top of it. Gosh, okay, that was an aside. But Lars, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, just immediately. And also, I'm starting a job on Monday. So the unlimited Bruce time on Clojure-MCP is going to get narrowed. I worked on this like for 12 hours a day, 13 hours a day, and more for 2 months, right? And most of that work was not making the code look good. It was just tweaking the behavior, tweaking it was just trying to get it to work with my expectations. Yeah.
Maybe I'll suggest that soon we may stop the recorded part. And Bruce, you should be tired and you should rest before Monday. And maybe for a moment at least we should let you give your voice a rest a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And so maybe somebody wish to say something brief before we stop the recorded part, and then maybe Bruce will conclude, and then some people might stay longer afterwards. And yeah, any brief comments or ideas? maybe I'll say something, and that is that what we are doing, what we do with this group is not only meetups, but some experiments, meetings, small meetings, collaborations in between. And what we are encouraging people is to use this group as a space to explore something and share it. And I'm also saying it to the people listening to this recording. If anybody wishes to explore a little more and do not be alone doing that, actually team up with 2 or 3 people together doing something, let us do that and maybe share it on a later meeting later on. And maybe, Bruce, you like to think and add something about what you wish to see happening in the community. And, you know, we don't need to do it now. Maybe we'll keep asking you about it later on, about what you hope to see, like you mentioned about MALDI and schema and spec, right? What could happen that would be complementary to your explorations of MCP in Clojure? And so that's like just encouraging everybody to keep communicating on whatever we're hoping each other might experiment with. And if there are any brief comments, then that's great. And maybe somebody wishes to say something. And if not, we'll ask Bruce to conclude the recorded part, and then some of us will stay longer. Yeah.
Just want to thank Bruce for putting this together. Thank you, Bruce. Good stuff.
And you mean the Clojure-MCP and not the meeting? Yeah.
Yeah. The whole thing.
Yeah.
The
Okay,
tool,
great,
man. It's
great.
awesome. Good job.
So, yeah. Anybody else? Okay, well, that switches me to, I think I feel like I concluded a while ago, and this would be just a quick wrap up. I do hope people use these things. Again, the people who have used it, you can talk to them and ask them if it was worth it, and I think you'll get, I know the response you'll get. And I highly encourage you to try this. Yeah, with an open mind, and experiment with it, and maybe hopefully realign your idea of what working with LLMs is and could mean. Yeah, that's really, I want people to try it, even though it's immature. And and if people want, I really love for people to dig, like somebody else, some people to dig in and like drill into what it is and how it works, and so that I'm not the only one reflecting on its behavior in my context, in my tooling, and the projects that I'm working on, and feed information back into Clojure-MCP. That would be great. Even better if people could, people who are experienced with running evals and stuff like that, that would be amazing, right? Like from a data, so people are doing that type of thing, running evals against prompts and stuff like that. That would be unbelievable, because I've just tuned all this by hand, right? And just by the seat of my pants. It could probably be made a lot more performant. As you saw, my prompt had a lot of things in it that don't even apply anymore because I haven't looked at it in so long. Yeah. So yeah, I welcome contributions along those lines, making it work better. When it comes to like packaging it and making it super slick for people to install, until there are people who are willing to maintain those, like the variety of needs around making this work in a seamless experience, that's just, it's a lot of energy that I don't want to spend until I think it's more robust. Because once you open that door up to a much wider audience, then the need for the amount of the volume of people needing changes just goes up, and until people are there to actually work on it a lot, besides just me, then that seems ill-advised. I think it's good that people have to actually work a little bit because that means they know what they're doing. Anyway, the conclusion is I really enjoyed this talk. Thank you for giving me so much space and so much time to just talk and talk and talk and talk about this. And I'm sorry it was disorganized and more of a off-the-cuff conversation. I'm still learning about how to talk about these things to people and myself. It's one of the things I experience often as it takes a long time before I get the actual story down before I can really communicate it effectively. So thank you for your patience and thank you for your attention.
Yeah, that was perfect, Bruce. And you know, this free form chat full of observations, I think that was what we needed. And I think for many of us, you know, you imagine it means a lot to hear your voice again. And that's very encouraging to see what you're doing. And yeah, so we will say goodbye to the recording and see you on the next times.